Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel Philosmos, where everything philosophical is discussed. Now, today I'll be talking about the blind spots of human consciousness, and I've actually just written a book called The Blind Spots of Human Consciousness, which is available for pre-order on Amazon. So if you're really interested, I've got the link below, and then you can purchase the book and transform your life. So there's several chapters. I think it's 8 chapters. Yes. Okay, so first chapter is blind spots. Second chapter is social blind spots. Third is urge or intuition. Fourth is dream or reality. Number 5, present moment. Chapter 6, unitary universe. Chapter 7, authentic experience. And chapter 8 is love. So let me just briefly explain what I go through in each individual chapter. So the first chapter, blind spots, I actually tackle the question of free will or determinism. And I basically am a compatibilist. Okay, so I see the relation between free will and determinism actually correlating into one idea. So because we see them as diametrically opposed, we see them as diametrically different. Thus, they appear to be two different forces that tug at our attention. So I have defined the coexistence of free will and determinism as willed orchestration. So whatever you will becomes the orchestration, and whatever becomes the orchestration becomes your will. So a lot of philosophers tend to see it as either or. They're quite dualistic about it. Not only philosophers, but people in general. But if you could actually link these two ideas, you realize that they are not really diametrically opposed. And I also give reasons as to why determinism actually is not a problem, essentially a problem, because the normal contemporary view from our perspective is that determinism makes us feel powerless, makes us feel as if we cannot do anything about a certain situation. But in fact, determinism is actually a blessing because it takes care of all the extraneous variables that you are not currently aware of at this present time. So it is deterministic that your heart is beating. It's deterministic that your brain is secreting certain chemicals. And if this were in your control, if every single intricate detail was in your control in this universe, then the universe would be a dangerous place. So alright, let's go to the second chapter, the social blind spots. So I think that's quite self-explanatory. I explain the blind spots that we do not necessarily witness and pay attention to within the social context. One avenue that I pry into is communication. So what I term as communication is actually interchangeable with a gap. So normally the normal purview of communication is communicating ideas from one individual to the next. Well, I look at it differently. I see communication as the gap, the moment in which there is no linguistic noise, there's no lingual noise, and you're in pure silence, okay, witnessing the event and witnessing the person that is communicating to you. Because if you are having internal noise while a person is communicating to you, then you have not really received that message. The only way to receive that message is if you are concurrently empty inside. So if a person communicates to me, I should not necessarily just factor in what they say. In fact, I'm not even controlled to do that. In fact, my disposition is actually to take the whole thing into consideration. Not only me, but every human being. Because when you look at factors like body language, then you realize that communication mostly is non-verbal. And I take this context and I blow it out of proportion and say nature itself, life itself, the universe itself communicates in the same way. The silence in which there is no linguistic noise. So animals also make noise sometimes when they communicate, but in most times the frequency of their noise when they're trying to communicate is quite low compared to the silence that prevails their communication. And we do not say that they're not in communication. We do not say that a whale's not communicating to another whale when it doesn't make a sound. We're not saying that monkeys are not communicating with other monkeys if they're not making sounds. We're not saying dogs don't communicate with other dogs when they don't make a sound. Sound is not necessary in communication. In fact, the most fundamental thing in communication is silence. And I actually gave a quote in that one person said that music is actually the space between notes. Okay, so if you just had notes with no space, then it would just be noise and nothing harmonic would arise from that. So, chapter 3, urge or intuition. So I basically tackle the fundamental question of when you're faced with the challenge, when you're faced with the situation, right? When you're engaging in life, we have two energies that we experience that propel us to take action. The first is an urge, synonymous or interchangeable, I'd say, with an instinct. And then we have intuition. So I explained the difference between the two as to how instinct and urge are developed through the environment. And the environment, if the environment is negative, then it will impose negative urges and instincts within the individual. So urges and instincts. One major difference that I mentioned in the book is that an urge or an instinct has an insistence to be accomplished. So whenever you have an urge within you, or the instinct within you to perform a certain task, maybe let's just say watch TV, you get the urge to watch TV, or you get the urge to have a meal, or you get the urge to let's just say watch a movie. So if you truly investigated these urges, then you realize that there are ways to avoid things. There are ways to deal with the stress and the anxiety and the frustration that comes about when you're dealing with existence. So urge and instincts are things that need to be investigated. Your desires, the things that you think you want, are actually not necessarily what you want, but it's ways in which you distract yourself from your highest purpose, which leads me to intuition, which is something that is much more subtle than instinct and urge. Well, it tugs at your consciousness, as in it grabs your attention. If there is an intuitive feel to not make a particular decision, let's just say you're supposed to go to work and you have the intuition that today I should not go. Now, you will be aware of it, but it will not have the same intensity in pulling your attention. It's quite subtle. It's a little voice that says, don't do this or do that. And a lot of times, intuition calls us to do things that we're not necessarily comfortable with. And that's also a main indicator that we're dealing with something different, because instinct and urge, okay, they behave very differently, as in they do not allow you to make a decision. It's like a flurry of compulsion that forces you to take a specific action. Whereas with intuition, it gives you the space to make a choice. Alright, so the next blind spot is dream or reality. So, next chapter, sorry, is dream or reality. So, most people find ways to distinguish dreams from reality. And upon deeper investigation, we cannot necessarily impose a wedge between these two ideas. They're not diametrically opposed. Wherever conscious attention rests, wherever conscious attention is the primordial focus of the universe, of life, of you. So if you are in a dream, that dream at that moment in time, at that present experience, is your reality. is a manifestation of reality, and it is as real as this waking life. The only reason why we distinguish the two, why we separate these two ideas, is based on our prejudice. The main prejudice that keeps reality congruent with being reality, our waking lives, is the fact that it's consistent. Albert Einstein even stated that reality is a dream, albeit a persistent one. So reality, in the sense, becomes something that we attach ourselves to because of this consistency. Another factor that makes reality appear to be more real is based on memory, which is a property and a faculty of the mind. And the mind itself is involved in dream space. The mind itself is involved in the waking life. So the same agent that is experiencing these two diametrically opposed things is continuous. So that shows that there is a common ancestor between dreams and reality. And I go deeper into the explanation of vibrations, and I explain how possibly a dream could be vibrating at a different reality than this one. If we could develop the technology to alter our brain wavelengths to be attuned to that of dreams, then we could tap into the dream frequency whilst we're in our waking lives. So I just explore all the possible ways in which we could benefit from uniting these two ideas. The next chapter, fifth chapter, is the present moment. So this is probably the most elusive things to observe. The fact that this moment right now, this moment is eternity, that there is no other moment and there will never be another moment, that the universe got created in this moment and everything concurrently occurs in this moment. So normally the inclination of the human mind is to go back and forth between past experiences and future experiences, and that's what gives the emphasis that there's a self that is in this continuum of experience, that there's a self going through time and going through changes. But when we actually observe this on the deepest level, there is something in the background that is observing changes. In order for you to register a change, you must be in a state that is changeless. In order to see a change in an object, you must have a template of what it looked like when it wasn't changed, when it was standard. The only way you register a change is when you realize that there was something that came about which was not there before. So essentially, we have a deep understanding of an unchanging state that exists within all of us. And within this unchanging state, we experience changes. But nonetheless, this unchanging state is a singularity in which I determine as the present moment. And this present moment right here, right now, is all there is. The universe unfolds in the present moment. Life unfolds in the present moment and will never unfold in the past, nor will it unfold in the future. Alright, sixth chapter, the unitary universe. I basically go on an elaborate explanation as to how every single thing is connected, as to how every single thing is not a separate existing entity or agent, that every single thing is interconnected. And this is an idea that is it's the main focused idea in quantum physics, especially when you're looking at subatomic particles. They're so related, these particles, that sometimes it's hard to distinguish one particle from the other. So I take this and superimpose this into our world, that every single thing is connected, that even our movements are synchronized and our thoughts are synchronized. So I just go on elaborate explanation on that. And then chapter 7 is the authentic experience. And most people would understand the authentic experience as enlightenment. And I just go on an elaborate explanation as to how you could achieve that. by being absent of thoughts. And once you are absent of thoughts, then you can engage reality in the most authentic way. But if you're engaged in thoughts, then you're engaged in premises, you're engaged in preconceived ideas, you're engaged with illusions. Thought can never be reality. Thought can be quite close. It can act as a representation of truth, but it can never be truth. It can never demonstrate what actually is. Only thing that can directly experience what is direct observation with no sense of self, with no sense of thought. That seems like an impossible feat to attain, because most human beings are so hypnotized and addicted to thinking that just the option, just the presentation of a world without thoughts seems to be quite intimidating. And then the last chapter is chapter 8, which speaks about love, in which I explain how our idea of love is so misconstrued and so misinterpreted and so incorrect that it has contributed to a lot of fallacies. I actually go back into all religions and how they all have one particular message. So in my approach to love, I try unify our global definitions of what this actually is, and I've limited it to openness, freedom, and amongst other things that life gifts you with. So everybody has a freedom to change their circumstances. Everybody has a freedom to have independent thoughts. Everybody has the freedom to feel whatever they like to feel. Everybody has the freedom to decide what any given moment or any given event means to the individual. So I even go out and explain how your consciousness has the very attributes of God, and God is equivalent to love. So you should actually read the book, guys. Once you're done reading this book, I promise you, you will transform and you will get an understanding of your God self. But please, as I said in the preface in this book, as I said in the introduction, if you're not ready to pry into your soul, if you're not ready to negate or let go or surrender preconceived ideas of what you thought was possible about you and what you thought was possible about the world and what you thought was the edge of knowledge, then I suggest you do not read this book, because it will challenge a lot of ideas that you have. But in actuality, that's a good thing, you know. Ideas should always be challenged. So if you approach this book with an open mind, then I guarantee you that it'll send you on a journey that will be so beneficial for you and will transform you and allow you to have a fluid mind and allow you to see reality for what it actually is. So thank you very much, guys. Don't forget to buy the book, and I promise you transformation. Please like, please share, please subscribe, and to end it off as I always end it off, for those who seek no more, for in the present we find it all. Thank you very much.